Well, hello and welcome to Outdoor Oklahoma. I'm Todd Craighead. Have you ever said yourself the expression or maybe something similar to, I don't know where I'd be without my friends? Well, today we're going to share a very special story of two friends, Rodney Roper and Russell Turnage. And these two first met years ago through a common interest in fishing. Well, fast forward several years later, and Rodney gets the kind of phone call from a doctor that changes everything. See, a tumor has been found on his spine, and a life-saving necessary surgery is going to have permanent consequences. Well, Rodney's life may have dramatically changed, but his friendship with Russell only grew stronger. The two just carry on as if nothing ever really happened. And today we're going to be doing some summertime bass fishing with these guys up on Dripping Springs Lake near Okmulgee. Now, I first had the idea of going out with these guys after seeing Rodney post a 10-pounder that he caught from that lake last year. And a little bit later, we're going to catch up with a biologist for the lake and find out what makes Dripping Springs such a great big bass destination. But before that, sit back and enjoy the inspiring story of two best friends.
Well, Rodney and I met probably 15 years ago at a church function. We would go to a men's Bible study on Monday nights. We'd play foosball and eat pizza afterwards, but it all started, the relationship started around that fellowship time, Bible study time on Monday nights at the church that we were attending at the time. And through that, we discovered that we had a common interest and a passion for the outdoors, fishing, and he invited me one day to go fish with him, and really the rest is history.
I'll never forget the first time I went fishing. My grandfather, Timmons, took me fishing, and man, I mean, we were catching perch after perch, sitting on a bank next to this marina, and I remember about it had to be every 10 minutes we were running out of worms, and he was giving me another quarter to go get a little, I don't know what they even call, a little container of worms. And but I got hooked in. He took me on other trips, sand bass fishing, and over the years I started pond hopping as I got older, and next thing I know, you know, when I was old enough, purchased my own boat after college and everything. I tournament fished for, I don't know, 29 years with my brother-in-law, and it was always about the, you know, at that point in time it was about catching the biggest fish and, you know, catching the most fish and being real secretive, you know, and you know how tournament fishing is, and you don't want to give out your honey holes, and you don't want to you don't want to give out too much information. But now that after I've had my surgery and my life has changed, you know, fishing now is more like it's not about it's more about the journey and not so much the destination, I guess you might say. And it's not about who caught the most or who had the biggest fish, but it's about just being on the water and enjoying everything that God has just put out there for us.
Swim bait? Or the swim?
I think that's the thing on you did.
He got them weeds.
Good job, Roper.
Yeah, that was my casting hook set again. Nah, I don't want to kiss him, you can.
If you hold them under the belly, they stay calm. It just, for some reason, it relaxes them. The first time I went fishing with Rodney, it kind of opened my eyes. You know, there were definitely a lot of things that I learned from him, and fishing techniques. And I already had a pretty good foundation from, you know, some friends of mine that had kind of taught me some things over the years. My good friend Brad and his dad Gary taught me a lot when I was a kid, and then my dad as well. But later in life, that relationship with Rodney, it just kind of showed me some things that I didn't know. And things that I didn't know about our local lakes, and so he taught me a lot. He was kind of a mentor to me in that area, and so I really enjoyed that time with him because I would just absorb like a sponge, just the things that he would teach me and show me.
I mean, I was used to catching the majority of the fish, the biggest fish, and just being not so much competitive, but now I'm sitting in the back of the seat and I can't put that lure exactly where I want it because I can't pitch underhanded. I got to cast overhanded. I make a big splash, and man, if I catch 4 fish a day, I'm happy. But because I'm on the water, and I'm doing what I like to do, and that has just been, that's what it's all about for me. And when I came out of the hospital, they told me that whatever you do, Todd, you know, whatever you do, don't get rid of your boat, because they talked with me extensively about my hobby, and they said a hobby can be more motivating to you than anything.
Yeah, so we got a phone call one day from his wife that he was diagnosed with a spinal tumor. And so I immediately call him and go and I meet up with him. And he was going to have to go to a specialist. And so he ended up going to the Mayo Clinic to ultimately have his surgery done. And it happened very quickly. Within a couple of weeks, he was off and headed to the Mayo Clinic to visit the specialist, and then they did surgery when they got him up there. The surgery was very long. If I remember right, it was about 9 hours. And that first week, my wife went up there and she stayed with him and just kind of ministered and loved on him and just, you know, was there to help him and just be there for him and his wife. And so she stayed up there the first week. And then when she came back home, I took a week's vacation and I went up there to go spend a week with him. And it became real obvious that life was going to change dramatically for him. And I think we always were hoping and praying for the best and that he would always be able to get back to physically the same old Rodney, but that didn't happen, and that obviously wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. So how you doing, Kyle? You on the phone? Yeah. Good to see you, man. Yeah. Where's Carl at today? Well, for 26 years I've been working for BG Products, and we are a automotive equipment chemical supplier. We provide equipment and chemistry to do like preventative maintenance services on vehicles. Like, so when you have your fuel injectors clean, we have chemistry for it. We're the world's leader in aftermarket supplies in that area. Coolant system flush, transmission flush, brake flush, power steering flush. Pretty much if there's a fluid on the car, we got you taken care of. And it's been a great career. I love it. I can't imagine doing anything else. We do a lot of different things for our dealers and customers. We do business with car dealerships, independent shops, school bus, industrial fleets, just a lot of different those types. And we provide them. We make sure their equipment's working good. You know, if they need any support, help, training, and things of that nature. Make sure they don't run out of product. That's obviously the most important thing, and encourage them to sell more and more of it. So, but that's pretty much what we do on a daily basis.
It seemed like it came in waves. You know, the tumor, the surgery, the challenges around the surgery, post-surgery. You know, Rodney has real sensitivity in his chest and back area. So the spinal tumor, he's got about a 9-inch incision that runs between his shoulder blades and his back, and it runs right through the midsection of his back. In that area around his whole body, he has nerve sensitivity. So wearing a t-shirt or anything like that just sets it off. And so there's pain and just nerve pain. And so he's got tape that has to run around the top of his body in a couple different layers to try to help him when he does wear a shirt so that it doesn't rub on those areas. And then he's got a pain pump that he has that's literally inside of his body that helps him deal with that nerve pain on a daily basis. So, I don't know, he has a lot of challenges in that regard. There's one.
Uh-oh, he got you hung up.
Yeah.
wrap around that thing one whole time. Nice fish, Ross.
Thanks.
Well, as promised, we're now going to catch up with Rodney Bowen, the fisheries biologist for Dripping Springs, and find out what makes this lake such a great big bass destination.
This lake was built back in the mid-70s by the city of Okmulgee, and from the start, we've done a lot of bass management work on it. When it first opened, it was just phenomenal, the number of bass that were caught out of here. I mean, I wasn't around at the time, but I heard stories, you know, of just catch them till your thumb was raw. And it went through some phases since then. With all that many bass, it eventually became too many bass and wound up with a stunted bass population. So through the 80s and probably the early 90s, we went through a series of different length limits to try to encourage harvest of those smaller bass and thin them out so we could get good growth on what was left. And finally, around late 90s and around 2000, we wound up managing it as a trophy lake with a 16 to 22 inch length limit, or slot length limit. And that way you can keep some of the small bass and a trophy bass if you want to when you're out here fishing. When we put a slot length limit on a lake for bass, we're doing that because that lake is very good at reproducing for bass. We wind up with way too many bass, and if we don't get some harvest of those small fish, we'll wind up with a stunted bass population with a lot of bass about 12, 13 inches. And that, when you get to that situation, it can take, like it did here, 10 years to get it straightened out, because you can't really draw down a water supply lake like this and drain it all and start all over. So when people see that we have like a trophy slot, 16 to 22 inch, or sometimes we do a 13 to 16 like we have on Okmulgee Lake down here. We really encourage people to keep some of those small bass because we need that harvest to cut down on the numbers of those small fish. There's only so much food that goes in the lake, and it's only so productive. If you got too many mouths feeding on it, they don't grow. You thin them out enough, they'll grow on up. And also, like I said before, part of the program with the trophy slot lake limit is that we stock Florida bass. And you know, there's no sense having stunted Florida bass either. So if you see that and you eat fish, take some bass home. That's what it's for. That's what we want you to do. Usually we stop the trophy limit at 21 or 22. That's about a 6-pound bass. That way, if somebody catches one, you know, a little bit bigger than that, they're pretty proud of it. So they can take that home and have it mounted, or if they want to, just take pictures and turn it back. I mean, the catch and release mentality is fine, especially on the big lakes like Eufaula and Grand and all that stuff, because they usually don't have good recruitment on those lakes. Eufaula doesn't. So we need all the little bass turned loose so they have a chance to grow. There's enough food there, but it's just they don't reproduce real well. These little lakes, smaller lakes like this, where that's really productive, we have the opposite problem, and it can cause a lot of grief. These are Florida bass. They are from Florida. They evolved in Florida. They're used to warm year-round temperatures. When they're little, especially their first year, if we get a real cold snap, you know, the water gets really cold, the Florida bass die. They just can't handle it. And they have trouble in the spring sometimes too with spawning if it stays too cold, you know, for a long time. So over several years, we've kind of delineated a line northwest to south, or northeast to southwest, where we don't stock bass past that, at least the small Floridas, because they're just not going to survive as well as they would in the other lakes. So we've kind of concentrated the Florida bass stockings on the southeastern half of the state, and we've got really good results like here. In order to help the fishermen It doesn't really help the fish that much because we can't do enough. But to help the fishermen, we put out fish attractors. And we always try to buoy them if we can, or at least publish the GPS coordinates. And here on Okmulgee and Drip, we've got, probably between the two, we've probably got 20, 25 fish attractors out, all made out of cedar trees, with trunks from about that big up to about that big. That's the quick and easy way to build a brush pile, and we put them out deep enough that you can fish them most of the year round. I've got several right here in this cove because it's right at the ramp. It makes it easy. On a windy day, you can come here and fish, not have to get out on the main part of the lake and fight the wind.
So Rodney's boat is it's OSU colors, and he's very proud of that. He's an alumni, and he loves the Oklahoma State Cowboys. And of course, our family is, we love the Oklahoma Sooners, and we give him a lot of grief about the colors of his boat. I was over at his house last weekend, and I was cleaning it for him, and I sent him a photo after I was done, and I said, I've been scrubbing and scrubbing and scrubbing on this thing. I said, it looks good, but I cannot get this orange crap off. So we have a lot of fun with it. We give him a hard time, but it's proof that OSU and OU friends can can live on and have fun together. So. I think like any human being, it's been tough. He has days where he's at a low, right? He needs to be encouraged and lifted up. But there are a lot of those times I see the same Rodney, and we'll have situations where maybe he might fall down in the boat or something and be upside down and his feet dangling in the air, and I'll look down at him, but he's just smiling, right? Or he's cracking a joke. I think how it's affected me the most is that it's a reminder that nothing's promised or guaranteed for tomorrow, and that one of the most valuable things that we have in our life is our health, and that can change in a moment's notice. And for Rodney, it did. It changed, and he's trying to grapple with really a new normal in his life. And it just reminds me to be grateful and humble about the things that I have. And Rodney inspires me and reminds me of that every time I talk to him, every time I see him, to just be thankful for the things that you have in your life and not to take them for granted, because it can all change very, very quickly.
I don't want to be an inspiration. It's not that. It's way overrated. But at the same time, I think it doesn't matter where we're at in life. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what happened to you. We should all try to inspire into people, to try to bring out the best in them.
Well, as I've mentioned before, I happen to know a thing or two about living differently, but I don't consider my situation as inspiring as Rodney's because, well, frankly, I've been this way my whole life. But Rodney, in the prime of his life, had to find a whole new way of living and really a new normal. And possibly the greater inspiration really comes from Russell, a shining example of what a true friend through thick and thin really looks like. So here's a challenge. Which one of your friends hasn't been fishing in a while? Maybe they don't have a boat or they don't have their own tackle. Be that friend that Russell modeled for us all and invite them fishing and discover how water can work wonders for a friendship. Thanks for joining us today. And for all of us at your wildlife department, I'm Todd Craighead. We'll see you right here next time on Outdoor Oklahoma.